Hey y'all, welcome back to Soul Alchemy with Anisha. You are tuning into our emotional healing and trauma integration series. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the illusion of safety. So pull up, get comfortable, and let's get started. False healing is so common in spiritual spaces. We end up performing our healing instead of embodying it. I've worked with a lot of clients who've come to me and said, Anisha, I just need to get through like this specific situation right now. What can I do to get through this situation and relieve myself of, whatever's going on? And let me be clear, it's never my job or my intention to push anybody deeper or further than they're willing and ready to go at that time. But the reality is that a lot of the time, like when we are beginning our spiritual journeys, we tend to think, and this isn't everybody, we're not a monolith. Our spiritual journeys are not, all the same. But many of us, we tend to hide behind, the rituals and the practices and the books and things like that, in order to avoid getting to the deep, deep work that is required of us in order to progress forward. I want to make a clear note here too, because this comes up a lot in healing spaces, but there is a difference between choosing not to engage with someone or with something from a place of sovereignty and wholeness and truth, and just avoiding it because you don't want to deal with it, even though it'll help us grow. But I'll dive deeper into that in the next video because that's a whole conversation. But just know that protecting your peace and avoiding discomfort is not the same thing. So what is false healing? False healing is dealing with the symptoms instead of transmuting the root. So let's take being triggered, for example. Triggering is a symptom of a misalignment, a violation, a trauma. Something has occurred to distort our sense of self and disrupt our sense of emotional safety. So let's say, for example, we're in a relationship and we find ourselves, triggered because our partner doesn't respond to us in a timely manner, or they essentially ignore us, right? So responding to that situation from a false healing perspective could look like detachment, like we're unbothered, we don't care, we're not getting invested, that type of situation. It keeps us safe, it's comfortable, and it keeps us from getting hurt. So we have to be careful because that's not actually healing. We're not actually dealing with why we are triggered by this in the first place. So we have to be careful because growth often looks like boundaries, isolation, and detachment, when really it's avoidance. So let me set the scene for you. You've been doing all of the work, you've been reading all of the books, you've joined all of the, spiritual wellness classes, and you think you're doing great, you're comfortable, it feels good, and then all of a sudden somebody says something out of pocket, or you're triggered, or life circumstances brings you back to that place where you were before you started, and all of a sudden it's like everything just goes up in flames. You feel like, you're not doing it right, or it's not working right. I want you to pause in that moment. If that's ever been you, or if that's you currently, I want you to pause in that moment and just wait, because oftentimes it's not that you're not doing it right, it is that healing requires that deep work, and it isn't about comfort, it's about liberation. The nervous system is wired to seek familiarity. And so when we've experienced a trauma, and remember, trauma is not what happened to you, it's how your emotional body and your sense of self is impacted by what happened to you. That trauma convinces us that safety equals self-isolation, detachment, toxic positivity, stillness, silence, etc., because it keeps us safe and it feels good, it's comfortable on the surface. But healing isn't proven by how good you feel, it's proven by how differently you respond when you are tested. So if you never get tested again, how do you know you healed? I can speak to this personally. I have dealt with this situation firsthand. Real quick story time. There is someone in my life who, for the longest, would trigger me to no end. Like, I would have a visceral reaction to this person every time they were around, because they would just say like little stuff and it would really get under my skin. And so it got to the point where I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to cut this person off. I'm not going to deal with them anymore. And I'll be fine. And I was great and I was comfortable and I was happy. I didn't have to deal with it anymore. And it felt like a healing. Releasing that person from my life felt like healing, right? But then whenever I would be forced back into a situation to confront that person or engage with them, even if it was temporarily, I would be right back triggered. And so eventually it got to the point where I had the realization, like, you're not really healed. And so that honesty made me really have to go deeper in and say, okay, what is it about myself that this person is activating within me? What is it that I believe about myself that this person is activating within me? It required me to do a deeper dive than I thought I had already done. I was doing the crystals and all that other stuff, and the practices. But again, that was just masking or taking me away from that deep work that was really honestly required. And after I did that deep work, then I was able to choose and exercise sovereignty over myself in the way that I engage with this person now moving forward. So I can have conversations and be in community with this person, and know that when they are being themselves, I'm able to engage with that person intentionally and from a place of sovereignty. And this is what real healing is. It is responding to your triggers or triggering situations instead of reacting from a place of wound, hurt, and trauma. We can't control what other people do or how they act or how they heal, but we can build the capacity to stay grounded through it and in spite of it, and work through those discomforts instead of avoiding them. So here are 2 reflective questions that you can ask yourself the next time that you are in a situation where you may be wondering, okay, am I healed or am I just avoiding this trigger? Then when you are actually encountering that trigger again, pause and name that trigger, because again, we can only address or respond to intentionally what it is that we are aware of. Then take the time to breathe through it, or if you have the space to do so, go ahead and journal through it, which is what I prefer to do because I like to see, my thoughts on paper. And this is what activates spiritual curiosity, which then leads to transmutation of this trigger into something that is more affirming and empowering. Then when you feel ready, you can re-engage with the person or the trigger with compassion, both for yourself and for them or the situation. And I like to think of this as like our portal to sovereignty, right? Because it allows us to really respond from a place of higher energy, like our higher self energy, as opposed to responding from a place of trauma. Healing isn't just about managing the symptoms, it's about responding from the soul instead of reacting from places of pain. Healing is remembering who you were before the world convinced you that you needed to guard your heart with fear. So the next time you're in a situation that you thought you healed from and you start to kind of feel that tinge of angst and I'm getting triggered start to creep up, remember to take a moment and pause and name your trigger, because remember, awareness softens that wound so that you can actively engage with it and move through it. Breathe through your response, give your body permission to feel everything that it's feeling without shame. And when you're ready, re-engage with it with compassion, both for yourself and for the other person or the situation that you're involved in. One of the things that I like to do is kind of think of like what my higher self would say to my younger self in that situation. And that helps me really move through that situation from a place of sovereignty and intentionality. That's going to do it for this video, you guys. I hope that you felt seen. If this video stirs something within you, if you felt called out but called forward, then this is exactly where you need to be. In the next video, we'll be exploring how to rebuild your spiritual compass so you can stop living in fear and start walking in divine alignment. Until next time, you guys, I'll see you soon.